If you were to add up the countless minutes and hours and moments that you've wasted overthinking, having anxiety, worrying about the things that you can't control, think of how much of your life and your time and your energy you have wasted. And today, I hereby claim that you are letting this go, that we do not identify as that kind of person anymore. We are going to release control and we are going to free ourselves from this prison of anxiety, overthinking, and stress. If you have or are currently struggling with anxiety or overthinking, today is the day that all of that changes. So if you are with me and you want to learn how to level up your life and unlock the hottest, highest, and healthiest version of yourself, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to today's episode of Hot and Unbothered. Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my podcast. If you're new here, my name is Brianna Gomez, and I am your host of Hot and Unbothered, the ultimate podcast for leveling up our lives, for identifying our dream, ideal versions of ourselves, and taking out the space in between, because we are going to start today to show up in our dream lives, you guys. And a lot of that starts with mental health. I feel like, you can get carried away with the vision boards and the who you want to be, having all the success and the mindset and the morning and night routines, but a lot of it is totally up here in your head. So today I'm going to teach you some things that a lot of you probably struggle with, and I actually struggled with. I literally grew up with crippling anxiety and shyness. I was so shy. I did not want to speak. I had really terrible social anxiety. It was pretty gnarly. I would say I would have people speak for me, and I feel like a lot of people, they don't recognize that, because now I have this platform and this podcast where all I do is talk and yap to a bunch of people I just met on the internet, but we're all just best friends, so we're actually not strangers. This is a safe space. This is a community that we have built, and I'm so happy you're here. I asked you guys what episodes you wanted to hear, and the number one winner, which honestly breaks my heart, was a topic suggestion that was how to deal with overthinking, anxiety, etc. And that really resonates with me. So I do have a lot to say about that. And I know we live in a world where that is so chronic. People on an everyday basis who we would never even guess, they deal with chronic anxiety, chronic overthinking, chronic stress, and we have no idea because it's something that's become so normalized in this world. It's become so normal to be like, oh, I have anxiety, I have stress, I'm overthinking, let's just deal with it. Let's just move on, not even mention it. And today, I am here to tell you, one, it's okay that you have this anxiety and this overthinking, but also there is a reality where that's not the case. There is a world that you can live in where you are not held by the constraints of your anxiety and your overthinking, and you are actually free, and you are actually detached, and you actually can go with the flow of things because you are not living at the mercy of this anxiety and overthinking. I'm going to dive into everything today: what overthinking is, where it stems from, how we can deal with these anxieties, how we're going to heal and show up as our best, most confident selves every single day. But before we dive into today's episode, you guys know I love to share a podcast review. I received a Hot and Unbothered testimony from some lovely girl named Anastasia. She's a 12-year-old gymnast who has suffered from depression and mental blocks. She said she was constantly being excluded from all the kids at her school and had nearly no friends. Her weekly highlights include watching Hot and Unbothered, taking notes from the podcast, and listening, and she's so grateful that words can't even describe it. She said, I discovered your podcast on New Year's Eve this year while searching up New Year's Glow Up, and my most recent episode at the time appeared. She watched it and immediately rated the podcast 5 stars. She said, 1 month later, I got out of my depression by herself without any help except for the fact that it wasn't really me, it was you. You helped me find my worth and get rid of all my toxic friends. I sent them a paragraph about how toxic they were, left the group chat, and blocked them for good. For the next month or so, I felt like I had no friends, but thanks to you, again, I now have a handful of true friends. I love you so much. You are like the older sister I never had and a magical goddess. Thanks to you, I'm finally myself again, and I know my worth better than anyone else. I now truly love myself, and it's all thanks to you in the best way possible. Thank you again and again for making this podcast a reality. You've inspired me to write my own book about my personal experience with depression, which is, I'm so proud of you, girl. I literally cannot thank you enough, and I'm so proud of you for identifying your situation, realizing that you deserve better, and learning how to get out of it using the Hot and Unbothered methods. I am so, so proud of you, and I have a whole episode on fake friends, which I think is the one that Anastasia is referring to, but that just means the absolute world to me, seeing you guys make these changes and implement these lessons from my episodes into your daily life, because you do truly deserve a life that is fruitful and a life that is full of relationships and people that fuel you instead of drain you. So I'm so, so proud of you and I love you. Don't forget to rate the podcast 5 stars, by the way, before we dive in, because you guys, it was just number 8. We reached number 8 trending in the US education podcast, but it's in all other countries. So we can hit the charts in all countries, you guys. It was so cool seeing it climb up to 8, and I know that we can make top 5 if we try. So feel free to interact with the podcast, share it with someone you love, because today this applies to anyone. If you know anyone who struggles with anxiety or overthinking or worrying, there are so many people in this world that need to hear this message, because it has gotten out of control. Without further ado, let's dive in. So I first want you guys to know whatever past truths that you have about yourself, whatever skewed perceptions you have that are limiting you from becoming the person you want to be. Maybe it's that you're too shy, you're too nervous, you're too timid. Throw it out the window. These self-limiting beliefs, I need you to take them and throw them out the window, because today that is not true. These things are not going to define you. You are brand new every single day, and in this moment, you can be whoever you want to be. So when I'm saying these things to you and I'm telling you to, how we're going to fix our anxieties, how we're going to stop overthinking, I need you to stop being like, no, I can't do that. That's not me. I need you to enter this episode with an open mind, okay? And I just pray that for you, and I hope that you can see this from a new lens, because whoever you were 5 seconds ago before you started this episode, you can be brand new right now. So these past truths, these self-limiting beliefs, they do not define you. You are brand new in this moment. And that's the number one step to becoming a non-overthinker, is deciding that you don't have to be the same person. You don't have to be that anxious girl. You don't have to be that shy girl. How do you think I'm sitting here talking to you on your screen? It's because I decided I wasn't going to be shy anymore. I wasn't going to be afraid, because if I want to accomplish these things and these dreams and goals I have for myself, I can't be the same person I was yesterday. I don't have to be the shy, crippling anxiety girl whose hands would sweat and who would get choked up and her voice would shake when she had to talk in front of a small group of people. Now I can be this girl who wants to share her message and her growth journey with the world and see other girls grow. And now I can talk to millions of people because I have a purpose and I have a reason, and I am not the same person I was back then with the anxiety. And this would never happen. I would not be here speaking to you if I let my self-limiting beliefs define me. So whatever you don't like about yourself, whatever you are afraid of, that does not have to be true starting right now. So that's step 1, is choose your identity. Every day we have the choice of who we want to show up as, and that is such a beautiful gift that we get. And oftentimes as humans, we feel like we are put in this cage, and in this cage roams our anxieties and our fears and our worries and our anxious thoughts. But you don't realize that the door to this cage is unlocked the whole time. You spend your whole life living in this cage, surrounded in these treacherous waters with scary, anxious thoughts and overthinking and intrusive thoughts that you don't even realize that the whole time you can just turn the door and walk through it. You were just assuming that it was locked. You were just assuming that there was no way out. When the whole time you hold the key, all you have to do is be brave enough to step out of it. Be brave enough to step out of this box, because you've been living with these lies your whole life, these anxious thoughts that you keep feeding yourself, that you were too timid to even see the life that's outside of it. So that's the perspective I need you to have, is that the sky is truly the limit. You might think that you are stuck in this box, but there's a door and a way out the whole entire time. You just have to have the courage to step outside of it, to step into a different reality, and to enter a world where these anxieties and fears do not exist. Now, when it comes to overthinking, let's define what overthinking really is, right? Because there's so many types of thinking, so many thoughts we have on an everyday basis. And what are the differences between overthinking and regular thinking? There's such a fine line, right? So in a lot of ways, overthinking can be the amount of time that you let yourself think about something. So there's thinking about something, then there's obsessing over it, worrying about it, fearing it. There is a big difference. And this can go with so many things. There's such a large scope in which we think of things in life. You know, you can have anxious thoughts about boys, you can have it about public speaking, it can come down to relationship anxiety, it can come down to personal anxiety, social anxiety. There's so many things you can be anxious about. This goes for literally anything. The amount of time that you allow yourself to think about something. So for me, the other day, silly example, someone said hi to me and I didn't think they were saying hi to me because I didn't recognize them immediately and I ignored them. And then afterwards I realized and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't say hi to him. And I let, 10, 15 minutes pass and I'm still like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad. Like I need to go back and say hi to him. And like my friend was like, you're still worrying about that? You're still hung up about that? And I did. I let myself feel bad about that when at the end of the day, there is nothing I could do to go back in time and fix it, right? And so I needed to learn, you know what? Let's just let this go for now. Next time I see him, I'll explain why I didn't recognize him, why I didn't say hi, whatever. Instead, I was like, oh no, biting my nails. This is such a silly example, but I got that feeling like, oh no. And that's what anxiety can be. It can be over the tiniest things that another person may not even understand. It might not even cross their mind, but to me, I am like, oh no, I feel absolutely terrible. And again, there was nothing I could have done, but I found myself moments and moments later still worried about it. And so I kind of just had to reassure myself and be like, okay, I will take care of it. Next time I see him, I will make sure that I say hi and explain to him why I didn't recognize him. I thought he was talking to my boyfriend, whatever. But then I've had other social interactions where something goes wrong, I embarrass myself, whatever happens, and I am thinking about it days and days later. I should have said this. I should have done this differently. What if they thought XYZ of me? Girl, let it go. That's the most important thing, is recognizing that we can't go back and change things and you're just going to have to live with it. And I'm going to get into the different tactics of how we are going to release these things, but that's one great example of overthinking, is when it literally haunts you days and days and days later. Something that really helps is to remember that if it won't matter in 5 years, why spend over 5 minutes thinking about it? So if something happens and you're getting a little worked up about it and it's becoming an anxious, overthinking thought, let yourself sit with it 5 minutes, 10 minutes max, and then let it go. Because again, soon this will not matter. It will all blow over. So stop wasting your time and energy on things that aren't going to matter in the long run. Another big difference between overthinking and regular thinking is the intention behind it and what kind of thinking are you really doing. I overthink when it comes to planning, right? I like to plan out every single detail of things, which is important, right? Planning things is necessary. Say I'm planning a birthday party, okay? Just regular generic example. I'm planning a birthday party. Yeah, I'm going to write out my guests, what I need, maybe make an inspo board, invitations, but then I find myself hyper fixating. Okay, there's planning and then there's hyper fixating. Like I have an idea in my head about something, and this has been this way ever since I was a little child, from as early as I could remember. And it used to be even worse. Like I would write it down. I would write it in my notes when I got my first iPod Touch. It was insanely out of control. And then I would spend this time hyper fixating and just zoning out and spending hours just envisioning how this thing would go, trying to plan it. I've wasted so much time of my life, quote unquote, planning, when I'm really just overthinking. But I tell myself like, no, I'm just planning. I'm just being prepared. I'm just visualizing. It's fine. And I'm like, okay, there's visualizing and then there's hyperfixating. There's planning for something and then there's getting really anxious and worried and over planning about it. You know what I mean? And so I think it's really important to know the difference when you are planning something, when you are thinking about something, and learn where to draw the line. It's a very thin line, but one needs to be drawn. So if you're like me and you get very carried away with overthinking, and again, the party planning thing is just an example, but this goes with anything. This goes with trying to predict how a situation's gonna go, maybe a speech if you have to talk in public. It goes with literally everything. Hyperfixation is very different from preparation, and you need to know the difference between the two, where to draw the line and set that boundary with yourself and be like, okay, wait. I'm overthinking, I'm hyperfixating, let me take a step back. This is enough. And there's very different types of self-talk. Another way to analyze whether it's thinking or overthinking is assessing the effectiveness of it. So by this I mean planning. Are you preparing in your head? Maybe you are meditating, you're just, thinking mindfully. And then there is the overthinking, which can come in forms of comparison. It can come in forms of obsession, jealousy, depression, negativity, gossip, criticism. Those things are not effective. So when you are thinking and you find yourself kind of spiraling on a little trail of overthinking, ask yourself, is this effective? And what is this doing for me? Because if I'm planning my party and I'm like, okay, well, I'm preparing, but then if it gets past a certain point where I'm overthinking every single detail and I'm becoming a control freak about it, now I'm obsessing. So there's a difference between the two. And as women, especially at this day and age, it's tough to draw that line, but I just want you to practice mindful thinking and learn how to kind of check yourself when you find yourself spiraling a bit and be like, okay, is this benefiting me? Is it benefiting anyone? Is this effective? Is this intentional? And intentionality is one of my big goals for this month and this year in general, because again, I like to focus on the future. I like to anticipate what's to come when life is happening right now, right in front of you. I like to be a planner ever since I was little. If there was a day I was excited for, I would plan out meticulously every single little detail down to the minute what I was going to be doing. And then the actual exciting day would come, but I would be so exhausted from all of that planning, aka overthinking that I was doing, where I didn't even have the energy or the fuel to be excited or happy or live in the moment because I have been anticipating it and so anxious about it for so long. And that's why I think it's so important to live in the present moment. We often become so carried away with what's to come that we don't look at what's right in front of us. And the most important, crucial moment of your life is what's happening right now. And this goes for everything. This can go even for success, right? Because I feel like people who want to be successful, they want to make a plan. They have this idea, okay, I want to be a movie star. Okay, and you spend so much time visualizing yourself as a movie star, obsessing over how cool it's going to be, planning your red carpet looks when you haven't even auditioned for a movie yet. You know what I mean? And so this happens to me all the time when I go to events or when I want things a certain way. There's something I've been looking forward to. I'm hosting something and I had a certain idea of how I wanted it to go, and then it doesn't go my way, and now I'm panicking. Now I'm anxious. Now I'm totally overwhelmed. And my boyfriend was kind of laughing at me the other day, and he's like, girls are so funny because you guys like to put yourselves in these situations where, and he said this like with all love, we were just kind of laughing about it, but he was saying that we like to put ourselves in these situations where we are totally overstimulated, we're totally overworked, we're totally overwhelmed, but it's like we wanted it that way. And he was using the example of how a lot of girls cry on their birthdays, and he's kind of like, why is that? And it's funny because it's true, because on my birthday, I plan out everything. I want it a certain way, I've been looking forward to it, I've been thinking about it, obsessing over it forever, and then it comes and it doesn't go the way I wanted it, and I'm so bummed out. And every girl cries on her birthday, which shouldn't be the case. It should be enjoyable and it should be fun and it should be about you and you being happy. But instead, most of us are like distraught on our birthdays because something didn't go according to plan and we want it to be perfect. And we hold on to this idea of perfect and wanting things to be a perfect way, and then it doesn't happen. And we totally lost it. And I am going to dive all into how to release control and how to detach, but I just want to reel it in for a second. There is a difference between analyzing and overanalyzing. There's a difference between being ready and stalling. And there is a difference between thinking and overthinking. And it might be a very fine line, but just do yourself a favor. When you are having a moment of distress or overthinking, ask yourself, which one are you doing? Are you thinking or are you overthinking? And learn how to discern the two. Overthinking is quite literally like a flame. And when you have an idea, right, in your head, that's the spark. And this spark, it can either turn into a light, right? It can be a bright idea, a light bulb, a candle that's lighting the room, or it can literally burn your house down, okay? And you need to learn how to contain it, keep it as a light, Keep it as something good, keep it as an idea. But when we add a little too much fuel to the fire, suddenly the building's burning down and it's too far gone and there's nothing you can do to contain it again, and it's like a wildfire and it's spreading everywhere. That is how anxious thoughts are for a lot of us, right? You just kind of do that snowball effect. Once it starts going a little too far, it keeps rolling and piling up and you can't catch up, and it just keeps doing that snowball effect, because what us overthinkers love to do is shove it under the rug. We love to shove it under the rug when we are feeling anxious about something. We might have social anxiety, for example, right? You go out in public, you're shaking, your palms are sweaty, you can't speak or whatever, it makes you super anxious, does not feel good. And instead of coming home and addressing that within ourselves, trying to heal it, trying to kind of reflect and ask ourselves, what was that? Or how can I heal from that? How can I make it better? How can I make that stop? We just accept, I just have social anxiety, that's just the way I am. And we shove it under the rug and we save it as a later problem. And then next time we step out, the anxiety feels even worse. Or when we're worried about something, instead of talking about it, some of us like to kind of brush it away, shrug it off, and then it just piles up because we keep building on top of that. Because instead of working through our anxieties, this generation, we love to distract ourselves. Instead of going home and journaling or meditating or seeing a therapist, you go home and you lay in bed and you scroll through TikTok, or you turn on your favorite Netflix show, you enter another world and you're with these characters instead of focusing on what's in your life right now. And I don't mean to be rude, right? Because there's nothing wrong with a little TV or TikTok to get your mind off of it. But when it comes to the point where you are literally ignoring the signals of anxiety that your body and mind is sending to you, and you're just distracting yourselves with external factors instead of working on yourself, that's when we have some issues to address. That's when we know you are so anxious and scared of your anxious and scaredness that you're not addressing it within yourself. But the only way out is through. Okay, I feel like we think that if we just keep pushing anxiety away, not talking about it, not addressing it with ourselves, that it will just be something that we learn to live with, which is sadly the case for some people. But again, I need you to know that this is not the reality you have to live in. And a reason why anxiety and overthinking is so unbelievably common these days is, one, social media and internet technology in general plays such a huge role. Think of how much stressful and totally alarming information we take in on a daily basis. Within 90 seconds, you can have seen the scariest news, some world disaster, some natural disaster, some crazy thing that stresses you out, something to make you paranoid. You can see all of these things within a 60-second span because we just have that short form content available at our fingertips. Now you're stressed out. Now you're anxious. Even if you're not consuming negative media, just all of this information you're consuming, the average human intakes about 74 gigabytes of data to our brains a day. And then it's just piling up, and it's literally like cognitive overload because we're taking in all this information on top of the worries and the stressors that you are already having in your life. Now we have all this additional information adding onto it. Then you add on the distraction. So your mind is completely full and you're also trying to distract it. So instead of working through the problem, you're kind of just adding on to the problem or taking away from the solving of the problem. Went on a bit of a tangent there, but needless to say, you have to work through it instead of run away from it. And I know it's scary, and although it might seem obvious that the clear answer, the right thing to do, is to work through your anxieties and to address them, but the easier thing for many people to do is to let it build up, to just learn how to live with this crippling anxiety and crippling overthinking because it's easier than saying something. It's easier than addressing it and putting in the work and exposing yourself to the things that you're afraid of. But just so long as you keep running from the things that you cannot control, the things that you are afraid of, the longer that it will have a grip around you for the rest of your life. Whatever it is that makes you anxious, you can try your best to run from it and hide from it and avoid it for the rest of your life. That does not mean it's going to go away. It doesn't truly get better until you address it and face it and look inwardly and fix it within yourself. But when something makes us anxious, our mind is essentially feeding us these lies that we're not good enough, that we're not strong enough to overcome it, that the worst thing in the world world is going to happen, right? We instantly assume the worst. And then that signals to our body. That's when, your throat closes up, you can't breathe, your palms get sweaty, however it is your body reacts. And that tells our body that we are not good enough, that we are not strong enough. But again, you can hide and avoid it all you want. That will not make it go away. The only way out is through. Think of a scary cliche movie, right? There's a monster somewhere in the movie. And is the movie from start to end the main character hiding in a corner from the monster, not doing anything about it? There would be no movie, girl. The movie is when there's that turning point where they become strong enough to get the upper hand and they go and confront this monster with the newfound bravery and they slaughter it, whatever, and they win. The monster has to be killed. The monster cannot live within you for the rest of your life. In order to win this battle, you have to come face to face from it. You can't keep hiding from it. And if anxiety and overthinking is our monster, you have to come face to face with it in order to defeat it. You cannot keep hiding in a corner, because if you're hiding in a corner, curled up in the ball, the monster, the anxiety, the overthinking has already won. You have to take control back over your life. So now that our perspective's in check, let's talk about what we are going to do starting today to fix this. Number one thing I will always recommend is having an outlet, you guys. And I don't mean a distraction, okay? Distractions are just temporary fixes. So like I was saying, watching TV, TikTok, that might be a temporary thing to maybe calm you down or distract you during an anxiety attack, and do what you have to do to get yourself grounded, get yourself back to earth. But in the long run, are those things going to heal you? No. The reason having an outlet is so crucial is because, like I said, we are taking in all of this information, this cognitive overload every single day, and we have no output. It's entering our mind on top of all of these other anxious thoughts and intrusive thoughts, and it's going nowhere. So what you need to do, number one thing I will always recommend is brain dump. Whatever is stressing you out, whatever is literally eating you alive, write it all on paper. And I know you might think that might make it worse, like bring more attention to it, but we have all of this junk building up in our brains. You have to let it out somewhere. So on a piece of physical paper, write down everything that is on your mind. And this is different for everybody. For some people, it might be a list of all the things they're afraid of, all the people who they think are not going to like them, whatever that may be. Or for other people, it could be a list of things that they have to do, they have to get done, that's just eating them alive. It can be so different for so many different people. There's not a right or wrong way to do this, but set a 3-minute timer. If you don't think anything is going to come of it, just give me 3 minutes of your time, look at the paper, and just write, and you will be surprised how the pen just starts flowing, okay? Write it down in something. If you want to take it even a level further, rip the paper after you are done, because whatever you wrote on that paper, it does not define you, but it's just helpful to get it all out of your mind and empty it out. It's literally a brain dump. Like, think of it as taking the trash out, or I don't know, peeing after you just drank a lot of water. You just need to let it out of your system. The reasons why temporary solutions are not good is because, yes, it may distract you and make you happy in the moment, but then the second you're faced with an interaction or situation that triggers your body, that triggers your anxiety, what are you going to do? You're going to react the exact same way that you did last time, because you did not grow from it, you did not learn from it, and you didn't put in the work to heal or address the situation within yourself. So having a mental outlet is huge. I will always recommend journaling, even if it's not just the brain dump, but just writing out whatever thoughts you're having. Get a journal. I don't care. Journal. Literally do not care. If you struggle with journaling, there's a 5-minute journal, but I literally love just like pen to paper, whatever comes out. Just give it a try, I promise. And when we think anxiety, we often think our minds, but you have to remember that your body reacts to anxiety as well, and you can actually channel your anxious energy into other physical activities. That's why people love the gym. It's literally their therapy. And I'm not saying to replace therapy with the gym, but it can be therapeutic for your body, and it's a great way to channel all the negative energy that you're feeling and this anxiety that you're harboring into physical exertion. Because when I'm anxious, at least I feel really overstimulated. I feel like I have a lot of energy and I just need to let it out, kind of like the jitters, but in a really bad way. And so if I work out or if I dance or if I go on a run or a walk, whatever feels the best for you, that's a great way to exert some of that negative energy out. And especially if you struggle with the type of anxiety where maybe you can't sleep at night, right? You can't focus or think straight. Channeling your energy into a physical activity can really help your body kind of learn a new pattern. So instead of when you're anxious, biting your nails or drinking alcohol, whatever the short-term fix is for you, try replacing it with going on a walk, going on a run, dancing, doing jumping jacks. It's really silly, but I promise it will work. And I know you might be rolling your eyes, but give it a try. Maybe you haven't found the thing that works for you. But if I'm having super bad anxiety and I can't stop overthinking and I just like go on a nice little nature walk, get some fresh air, be by myself, it's honestly so helpful. And that brings me to another tip, which is practicing solitude. Some people, for the life of them, cannot be alone. They literally cannot be alone with their thoughts. I'm going to need you to practice that, baby. I'm going to need you to practice because it's so important. And that's where a lot of anxiety stems from, is honestly just not being able to sit alone with your thoughts. And it's something that we all have to learn how to do. And solitude is not the same as being lonely, right? Solitude is practicing intentional time with yourself, whether that's journaling, whether that's going on a walk and just listening to nothing, but kind of just your own thoughts, talking it through in your brain. It can be meditation, it can be yoga, it can be just like literally lay down on your bed, sit down, close your eyes, and be alone with yourself. The practice of solitude is so underestimated, but so powerful and so healing. And I want to emphasize, do not be afraid to be a burden to other people, okay? Your thoughts, your mental well-being is never, ever, ever a burden. So please, please, please confide in your loved ones, confide in your friends and your family, maybe a teacher or a counselor, a coworker, literally anybody. Be open and honest with people because you'd be surprised how many people are going through the exact same thing, okay? So I just want to be an advocate for that, talking to people about what you're going through, being open and honest. You are never alone. You can always message me if you're going through something. I have a community also. If you want to be a part of the Hot and Unbothered community, we can all reach out to each other on there. I have a group chat on my Instagram. We can talk, be there for each other. You are never truly alone, okay? So be afraid to lean on other people, to open your heart out to others, to ask for help, because sometimes just talking to a friend for a while, ranting, working through it together is so, so powerful and so healing. But also, I want you to know that it is still at the same time important to practice solitude. I know a lot of people who will talk to others about their problems, but they don't really sit with it and kind of work it through with themselves. You know, they'll analyze the situation with other people, talk it out with others, but then when it comes to that alone time, they just can't do it. So I want you to know that the two are equally important. Even if you do have, external support, it's important to be able to look inside of yourself and kind of set anxiety, figure out where it's coming from, and assess what you need to do about it. And I guess I should have said at the beginning, but what does trigger your anxiety? Ask yourself, is it public speaking? Is it relationship anxiety? I'd say transparently that as of lately, like within the last 2 years, I struggled with the relationship anxiety pretty badly. And that stems from something that I went through years ago in my toxic relationship, but kind of just carried over. Also, identifying where you think this anxiety came from. Working through a therapist is very, very helpful. I highly recommend it, but most things that we go through stem from somewhere. Other things, they may not. Maybe this is just something that you were born with. Either way, it doesn't have to be your truth. But I want you to figure out what triggers your anxiety or your overthinking. What do you find yourself overthinking the most about? So for me, I get anxious or I overthink without reassurance. Yes, I can ask for reassurance from the people around me and they know that, but there's other times where I'm just being totally impractically anxious. Nothing happened for me to be anxious over, yet I'm just suddenly flip switch and I'm anxious. There's something that I need you all to practice, and that is called self-soothing. And I have every intention of doing a anxious attachment style or overall attachment styles of relationships episode if you guys want to hear that. But self-soothing can work in every regard actually. So when you're feeling anxious, sometimes we don't always have someone to calm us down. So we can't use that as our only thing that we rely on. If you have a friend or somebody who knows how to calm you down, but you can't expect them to always be available for you at every single second. So you have to learn how to self-soothe, which is essentially learning how to calm your anxieties, calm your body's signals down on your own. And there's a lot of different ways of self-soothing. Basically, for me, it's like checking in with myself and talking to myself and being like, okay, what happened to make me feel this way? Say I'm being anxious and overthinking. Let's check in with ourselves, okay? Because did anything happen or go wrong that could possibly make him mad at me or make him hate me? No. Has he given me any reason to think that that might be the case? No. Have I done anything to make that the case? No. So why am I overthinking? But if you're having a more physical anxious reaction that you need to self-soothe, breath work is a huge one. There's a 3-4-5 rule of breath work, but there's so many different amazing breath work patterns to practice. But it's you breathe in for 3, hold for 4, and then exhale for 5 seconds, and then you repeat. And that kind of just helps your nervous system, help get your breathing regulated, help calm you down, and just take a second. But again, this could be anything: journaling, walking, having a warm cup of tea. It can be stretching, meditating, praying, making more lists, making more brain dumps, whatever works for you. But learning how to self-soothe is such a powerful skill because it really teaches you that, okay, I do not need anyone else to calm me down. I can self-regulate and figure this out within myself, and just becoming more self-aware of yourself, what triggers your anxiety, and what works for you when it comes to de-escalating these situations. And such a great way to take back the reins of your life, take your power back, and get a grip on your anxiety. And while communication with others is so huge and so crucial, it's equally as crucial, if not more, to have this communication within yourself, that self-check-in, that self-soothing. It really does wonders, and I'm gonna dive into something I like to call exposure therapy. And it doesn't have to be crazy, but ask yourself, what are you anxious of? What are you afraid of? What do you overthink about? And if it's something such as talking to people, right? You have really bad social anxiety. Your homework is to go out into the world and be the most opposite of social anxiety person you've ever met. Social anxiety is now officially afraid of you, and you like to say hi to all of the different people in the world, compliment that girl's skirt who you like who wasn't even looking your direction, say that you like someone's smile, ask the barista how their day was. This can be on such a small scale. Obviously, go at your own pace, and I'm not forcing you to go out and talk to strangers if you don't want to, but just try little things, little urges to kind of test the waters, because again, the only way through these things is to confront them face to face. And I think that if you give it a try, expose yourself to these situations, you'll be surprised at how far you can grow from it. Because again, I used to be so afraid of public speaking. I would not be able to speak. My voice would shake. I would pray I didn't get called on in class. My hands would be sweating. And my sister would kind of make fun of me because my voice would be all timid and scared. And a year later, when I got to high school, suddenly I decided I was going to be the person who raised her hand and volunteered to go first. Because what's funny is I didn't do that because I wanted to be bold and out there. That was actually my way of taking control over a situation. Because back then it would be, oh no, I hope I don't get called on. I hope I don't have to read aloud. But then I was like, wait, well, why don't I just volunteer to go first? So then I'm prepared. I know exactly what I'm going to say or what I'm going to read, and I can just do it because I don't have to worry about when's this going to happen. Let me just do it and get it out of the way. And that's a silly way of thinking. That healed me. That is one of the things that healed me, because it took me from being like, oh no, I hope this doesn't happen to me. I'm so afraid this is going to happen. I'm going to have to read or speak in front of people. And I was like, well, why don't I just make it my decision? Why don't I just flip the script and be like, instead of being afraid of this thing, I'm going to embrace it. And I'm just going to make it happen instead of being afraid of it happening, which might sound insane to some people. It really worked for me. I'm not gonna lie. It totally worked for me. And that's where a lot of anxiety for many people stems from, is the unpredictability. Whether it's social anxiety or something completely different, we become so afraid of the unknown. And I feel like in today's world, we are so sheltered, where we want to know and control everything that's going to happen to us in life, where we want to be the author of our own life, and we want to feel ready for whatever obstacle we're about to face. We want to be ready, and we want to have it planned out, picture perfect, everything go our way. We want to be the one in control. When in reality, That's just not how life works. And if you are waiting until you are ready, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. And I guarantee that. You may think that you have calculated out every single mistake or obstacle that might possibly come your way. No, there is always something. And so we become so obsessed with being prepared and getting ready. I'm like, wait, let me not start my podcast yet because I don't have it perfect, because I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Well, maybe you should just do it. If you would have spent a fraction of the amount of time you spent worrying and overthinking and overanalyzing all these little things, you would be 10 times further in life. Oftentimes when we're afraid or we're anxious, we think the solution is staying safe. We think that we're protecting ourselves by sheltering and hiding away and taking the safe path that we know is going to be okay and holding back from whatever it is on the other side. But do you not realize that whatever is on the other side could be the thing that heals you? It could be the thing that makes you, but you're never going to know because you are living with this constant fear of the unknown. We are living in this way of defying change and moving against it when really it would be so much easier if we just went with it. So you have the choice every single day to defy the unknown, to fear it and to hide from it, or just embrace it and go with it. But releasing control is almost like taking control back over your life, which is crazy to think about. That was so cryptic. But if you learn to say, you know what, I release control, I release and detach from the things that I can no longer control, that in a way is taking your life back from that anxiety, from that fear. Because when there's nothing to be afraid of, you actually are in control of your life. There's something unsaid but so powerful about being able to be malleable, being able to be resilient and go with the flow of things and being flexible with the flow of life. Like, that is such a superpower, honestly, and it's something that I think we can all work on. And a huge way to do this is through the law of detachment. Law of detachment is similar to what I just said, releasing and detaching from the outcome. We become so hyper fixated on the outcome. When you're having social anxiety, you're freaking out over who's going to be there, what are they going to think of me, what are we going to do, what's this place going to look like, trying to set the scene in your head, imagine every single possible scenario that's going to go down. There is no way you could possibly predict exactly how everything's going to play out. There's no way you can control exactly what's going to happen each step by step. There's just no way. So instead of wasting your precious time obsessing and overanalyzing and trying to predict and control the outcome, what if you just let go and spent time in the present, what really matters, instead of freaking out about something that you cannot control? And I have a whole episode on the law of detachment that I highly suggest listening to because it is a life-changing practice. Also, when we're entering situations, I feel like we just expect ourselves to be anxious, expect ourselves to be nervous or worried because that's just who we are as people, right? We're so stuck to these past self-limiting beliefs. So we expect that our bodies are going to freak out or be anxious, and we're expecting for everything to go a certain way. What if you just release the expectation? And what if instead of trying to expect everything to play out a certain way, you just expect the unexpected? And just say, okay, well, that's how it is and I can't control it. I'm going to show up and I'm going to make the most of it. It is truly a skill to have that flexibility and that malleability to have a situation that you're faced with and know that you're going to make it work for yourself no matter what. And even if it doesn't work out in your favor, even if it makes you nervous or anxious, you still went and you still tried and you're growing stronger from it every single day instead of running from it. And the second that you accept the fact that there will be failure, you might get anxious, you might get scared, there will be mistakes, it's not always going to go exactly how you planned, it becomes a lot less scary. In a way, we can kind of break down these big, scary things that we're afraid of is by making a step-by-step and taking it one step at a time. Maybe the thing you're overthinking is a big test, okay? And this is just a minor example. I know there are way deeper, more meaningful things in life that we get anxious and overthink about, but just for the sake of an example, a hypothetical is the test. And you're so caught up over this test. And you're like, how am I going to perform? I hope I pass. If I don't pass, then I'm not going to make it to this school and blah, blah, blah. What am I going to do if I don't get in the school? Slow down, because before you even take this test, what do you have to do? you have to make sure you study for this test. And instead of cramming, make sure you plan it out so you study day by day. Make sure you get a good night's sleep before this test. Break down the steps instead of looking at the overall picture and the what if. What if is the most harmful thing that you can do for yourself, which is making hypotheticals. Making these hypotheticals and obsessing over them will do nothing for you, yet we waste so much time in life with these hypotheticals, before and after a situation. After a situation that I can't stop overthinking, I'm like, well, what if I said this? What if I did this differently? Too bad. I didn't. And then before a situation that I'm anxious about, I'm like, well, what if this goes wrong? What if that person doesn't like me? What if? If then, so what? If this thing that you're afraid of, this hypothetical situation or scenario happens, so what? Also, there's nothing you can do about it. But my boyfriend always says this, like, well, what if XYZ? He's like, well, what if anything? So I'm like, well, what if my boss is mad at me? And what if I get fired? And what if blah, blah, blah? My boyfriend's like, what if anything? What if the sun fell down to the earth tomorrow and we all burst into flames and you know what I mean? What if a unicorn comes walking through your door right now? What if anything? If we're going to dive into the hypotheticals, let's go into anything and let's go into the good and the bad. We automatically let our minds go to worst case scenario. What about best case scenario? If you're going to go through all these hypotheticals, why do they have to be through a negative light? Maybe you are afraid that you're going to bomb this audition and you're never going to act another day in your life, or what if this is your breakthrough moment and you become a superstar? It can go so many different ways, yet our brain automatically chooses the worst one, and it comes to almost a glass half empty or half full mindset. Start trying to choose the full. Anxiety really is about perspective. So when you take things just one step at a time and focus on what's in front of you, that's what's going to put you on the path to the life that you want to live. Whether that's a path to success or love or peace or solitude, the way that you get on that path is by focusing on one thing at a time and focusing on the task in front of you, not focusing and trying to hyperfixate and plan out a million things at once. That's not going to put you on the path. That's going to keep you stuck where you are. So just remember that there are many things in life you can't control, and there are totally things worth getting anxious about or nervous about. For example, my sister, she lives in Thailand. This morning / last night at midnight, there was a huge earthquake there, and she's texting me, and the buildings are like all swaying, and there's buildings collapsing, and it's terrifying, and I'm so scared and worried for her. And at the same time, there's absolutely nothing I can do in that moment. And I do not mean this in an insensitive way. And I hope that everyone will take a second to just pray for and send love to the people in Thailand who went through these things. That is absolutely terrifying. And I hope that everyone's okay and that they're safe. And in this moment, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm so nervous for her. But I tried not to let it keep me up at night. I tried not to spiral into my old ways. Like, oh no, what if this happens to her? What if this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, what if she's okay? And I knew she was going to be okay because I chose the positive perspective, the best case scenario. And I knew she was going to be okay because I had faith. Instead of worrying about the things I couldn't control, it's not like I could have snapped my fingers and teleported to her and saved her. I couldn't do that. I had to learn how to do what I could in my power, but also not worry about the things that I couldn't control and instead lean on faith. I'm going to wrap it up with this. Faith has helped with overthinking so much. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you what to believe in, but personally, in my experience, believing in something is just so healing and reassuring when it comes to anxiety. And that's helped put a lot of my anxieties at rest, is just learning that whatever is happening here on earth, there is something so much bigger than that. My anxieties are so small in the grand scheme of things. We live in a crazy world and universe that was created by a creator, and yet we think this anxiety is what's going to be the end all be all. Like, no. And so what helps for me personally is, like, I believe in God. And if I have a second, like, I pray, I can give it all to God. You know how people say, like, let go and let God? Really learning how to give those anxieties up and just being vulnerable, stating what you're afraid of, but asking for help, and also knowing that you are safe because someone else is looking out for you and protecting you and has a whole big plan and divine timing. That is so healing. So personally for me, like, diving more into my faith has helped me so much with anxiety. My relationship anxiety has gotten so much better. And I just know now when I'm faced with any issue or anything I'm afraid of, I can ask for help and use my faith to kind of go through that. And I don't talk a lot about my faith on here just because there's a lot I'm still learning, but I would love to one day, if you guys are interested, dive into that. But I just want to wrap it up by saying you are in control of your own life. You decide who you want to be, and stop giving your life away to the hands of anxiety and overthinking. And I believe in you. You don't have to be the same person you were yesterday. You are brand new today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please rate it 5 stars, and don't forget to leave a podcast review to be featured in next week's episode. Don't forget to follow me on socials at Brianna Gomez with 2 B's. That's where you can join our Hot and Unbothered group chat on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok, Snapchat, you name it. Follow the podcast at Hot Unbothered on Instagram and TikTok. I love you guys so much, and I will see you next Free Day. Bye. Mwah. I just want to add that I do know that there are some forms of anxiety that might feel unbeatable, or like you are alone, or you really need some help. Please, please, please do not be afraid to reach out to a therapist or a doctor, some sort of professional. I am no professional, and I know that it's not that easy to just snap your fingers and have your anxiety instantly healed, but these are just some things that helped me, and I hope can help you. If not completely heal it, just make it a little bit easier. But again, please reach out to a professional if it is getting to a point where you feel like you really need help. I love you.